Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar. Today, we are presenting a webinar called You've Had a Successful Walk Bike to School Day. What's next? So this is presented by the North Carolina Active Routes to School Project and hosted by UNC Highway Safety Research Center. So I'm going to start by telling you a little bit more about why we decided to host this webinar today. Active Routes to School has been very lucky to partner with a number of schools across North Carolina that are participating in annual Walk to School Day events in October and Bike to School Day events in May. That number has topped 200 the last few times we've held those events. So what we're looking to do today is to provide tools to those schools to take the next step into making walking and biking more of an ongoing opportunity for your students and families. So the purpose of today's webinar is to give you some ideas for next steps for what an ongoing program could look like at your school and to showcase successful examples from schools across the state. So you'll be hearing from several different schools today about what their programs look like and how they got to where they are today. And it will also highlight the different types of ongoing programs that can be used at any school. So we know that North Carolina is a very rural state, and even in some urban areas, it can be difficult to find safe routes to school. So there are also opportunities to do these activities on a school campus so that every school can participate. The objectives for today's webinar will just give you an idea of the information that we want to convey. So we're hoping that by the end of the webinar, you're able to describe at least 3 different types of ongoing programs and understand what the differences between those programs are, to understand the basic steps for building a successful program, and to be able to identify what some of those ongoing challenges are for programs and how you can address them in your school community. We also just want to give you a basic outline of the information that you're going to receive during the webinar today. We're going to give you a brief overview of Safe Routes to School and Active Routes to School, and then you're going to hear specifically about these different kinds of programs from 4 different schools today. And we will have time at the end of the session today for question and answer, which you can enter into the chat box. I forgot to introduce myself. So my name is Jennifer Delcourt, and I am the Region 5 Coordinator for Active Routes to School. And what I'm going to do now is turn it over to George Berger, who is our Region 4 Coordinator for Active Routes to School. And he's going to tell you more about what Safe Routes to School and Active Routes to School are before you hear from our school partners today.
Hi everyone, my name is George Berger. I'm the Region 4 Active Routes to School Coordinator, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about Safe Routes to School, Active Routes to School, and then we're going to move into the presenters who are going to be talking about their programs. So first off, what is Safe Routes to School? Safe Routes to School is a national and international movement that creates safe, convenient, and fun opportunities for children to walk and roll to and from schools. The program has been designed to reverse the decline in children walking and bicycling to schools, and Safe Routes to School strategies and activities, whether on the way to and from school or while at school, also play an important role in reversing the alarming national trend toward childhood obesity and inactivity. The North Carolina Safe Routes to School program was started in 2005 using federal funding that was passed through to NCDOT, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Division, where there's a state coordinator for Safe Routes to School in the division, that is Ed Johnson. The North Carolina program has funded both infrastructure and non-infrastructure grants, and it focuses on grades kindergarten through 8 and projects within 2 miles of a school site. The North Carolina Active Routes to School, however, is something of a subset of that. It was created as a partnership and a collaboration between the North Carolina DOT and the North Carolina Division of Public Health in 2013, and has been a 6-year, or will be a 6-year grant-funded program through 2019. There are 10 regional coordinators scattered throughout the state and seated in local health departments. We not only align with local initiatives, but we also work in the interface between the local coordinators, the local schools, and state funding and administrative partners. And we work specifically on non-infrastructure strategies. Here's a map of the state of North Carolina. The little red diamonds there show the seats, the health department seats across the state for the 10 regional coordinators. Just to give you an example, my region, Region 4, is basically centered around Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, but I represent 11 counties in the western side of the Piedmont of North Carolina. Other coordinators represent multiple counties, anywhere from 8 to 11 or 12, and they're scattered, as I said, across the state. The Active Routes to School goals are basically, to start with, the most important is to increase the number of elementary and middle school students who can safely walk and or bike to school. And that doesn't mean necessarily that we wouldn't work with a school where it just wasn't safe to walk or bike to and from school. It means that we would try to develop other strategies and opportunities to allow for the students of that school to receive a little bit more physical activity in their daily lives. We also promote and encourage physical activity at school. You'll hear more about that from a number of presenters today. We try to work on collaborative efforts to increase the amount of public and open use of facilities for physical activity. An example of that is an open use policy for a school district that allows the general public to use the school playgrounds and outdoor play facilities on the weekends. And then finally, one of our other goals is to encourage policy change efforts that increase opportunities for safe routes to and from school, like complete streets. Now I'm going to introduce Walter Rabb from Davidson Elementary School.
Good afternoon. I'm Walter Rabb. I'm the physical education teacher at Davidson Elementary School, which is located in Mecklenburg County. It's a small town right near the campus of Davidson College. It's a school that has about 725 students currently. I'm here to talk about a program we have at school that we call Tigers on the Prowl. We're the Davidson Tigers. I've been at Davidson for around 20 years, a little bit over 20 years. About 15 years ago, in an effort to find some additional ways to increase physical activity at school, I started a program called Tigers on the Prowl, which initially started as a recess-based program where students could, at their recess time, in addition to their normal recess activities, they could walk and run some laps around certain designated areas at school. The laps would accumulate throughout the year, and then students would have goals to try to get to certain milestones. We have a 10K club, a half marathon club, a marathon club, and then once students reach more than one marathon, they are in the multi-marathon club. And I'm fortunate to be at a school that has some pretty decent volunteer help. So initially the program started with just me on a very small scale. I pretty much did everything as far as materials. And then when students reached their levels, I just had some hand-printed certificates or computer-generated certificates that I passed out. After about a year or two, I was able to secure some parent volunteers to help me coordinate the program, and through some of their connections, we were able to generate some community business support, some sponsorships, and that helps with a few other areas. When kids reach certain levels, they earn, currently it's just a little keychain. For example, they get to the 10K level, they get what's called the 10K club keychain, then the half marathon club, then the marathon club keychain. Once they reach the marathon level, thanks to some of the business support, we have a Marathon Club Tigers on the Prowl T-shirt they get, and that shirt, excuse me, that shirt changes every year. The color changes. I think if you're looking at the screen, that's me wearing the shirt from a few years ago. Each year we start the program with a big kickoff. The kickoff is a pretty big event. It's really grown into a community event. We invite a lot of members from the community, business leaders, people from the town board, the mayor, police officers, firefighters. They come out, and also athletes and coaches from Davidson College. So we invite them, and they come out, the classes come out, and they run their first laps of the year. And we have just tons of parents that will come out. We invite parents to come out, and typically each each class will have a good number of parents to come out, and it's really nice just to see not only the parent support but the community support, and it's just kind of a festive way to get the program started. After that, it's designed to where the teachers aren't supposed to have a lot to do, as far as we're trying to make it kind of teacher friendly. Classroom teachers have just so much on their plates, so each class gets a roster, a tally sheet, and so when classes go out, either at recess or a separate time during the day, which I'll mention in a second, they do have me laps they want to do. It'll get recorded. Some of the older classes will have that as a job for students, but the most a teacher might have to do is just make sure the laps get recorded. And then we have some parent volunteers who are assigned different classes, and they'll come in every 2 or 3 weeks, and they just will pull out the tally sheet, and they'll add up the laps for each child. And then whenever a child has reached a new level, if they need a keychain or they earn their shirt, the parents will get those items and give it to the classroom teacher to give out. So it kind of, once it gets going, it runs itself. One thing that's evolved a little bit over the years is when it first started, it was pretty much a recess-based program, and over the years we've really tried to, with all the research and the benefits of kids being active throughout the day, we've encouraged classes to maybe try to find a separate time in addition to recess, even if it's just a short 10-minute window at some point during the day where classes can get out and just walk or run for just a few minutes, just as a kind of a brain energizer. They get back in, they're a little more focused, well-behaved, they've gotten some physical activity, and a lot of teachers have reported, good results as a result of that activity. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. We do have a few special events throughout the year that are Tigers on the Prowl related. At least twice a year, we have what's called a guest lab week, where we invite parents to come to their child's Tigers on the Prowl time, which the teachers will communicate, and walk or run laps with their children at their Tigers on the Prowl time. And then we call it guest lap week, and then those guest laps will get added up and kind of sometimes have a friendly competition. The classes will try to see who can get the most guest laps, and they'll earn like a little extra time with me in the gym. We have at the end of the year, we have a multi-marathon celebration. Any child that's reached more than one marathon will be invited, and they'll come to the gym, and we'll just do a lot of fun games and activities, and just kind of celebrate the kids who were able to get more than one marathon. That's about it in a nutshell. As far as challenges that we've seen arise on occasions throughout the years, it's a very popular program amongst the parents and the community and our staff. Every once in a while, there'll be a teacher here, a teacher there who, needs some extra encouragement to get a class to go out regularly. They may do it some, and sometimes we have issues with a class or two that they go out and they do their walking or running, but they end up not recording their laps, and so then the kids don't, they can't reach their goals as far as milestones, and those are just little individual issues. We kind of try to just deal with them as they come, and just in general, it's a very well-supported program amongst our school community and community in general. That's about it. Sure, I'll think of something else, but I've put some documents on the website that sort of, if I left anything out, I think one document is just an overview of the program, and the second document is the invitation we send out to our Tigers on the Prowl kickoff. You can kind of get an idea of what that looks like. And then we also have a document I sent out to our staff, our classroom teachers, to kind of just give them the guidelines of the program. Most of them know it well, but just in case they have any questions, or if anybody wants to create a similar program that may give you some ideas of, some things that I communicate to our staff. And then I think this is on there. On the back, there are some suggestions that these may kind of address some challenges that come up throughout the year on occasions, and just some suggestions, some hints to help make the program as beneficial as possible. But that's about it. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions or if I can be of any help.
Okay, I think we're ready for our next presenter. Jennifer, if you would like to switch the slide.
Hi, this is Jen Zerda. Are you guys able to see my screen okay? Are you guys able to hear me okay? Okay.
Yep, we can see your screen and we can hear you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I'm the wellness coordinator for Northwoods Elementary, and I wanted to talk today a little bit about the walking recess program. Sorry. And we piloted this last year as our first year. So this is similar to I think it's the precursor to what Walter was just talking about, where we just had a program that was recess walking. And we have about 530 elementary students. And for us, our track it's not a paved track, it's not very large. So we had to kind of think about some considerations, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. But what we first started out with was selecting where our goal was to actually complete the walking recess. And so we used the active routes to school, this walk across North Carolina map, and we selected both the Northern Trail and Southern Trail because it had great landmarks that we could see, and the mileage was already totaled there for us, so that it was a visual way for us to track it and show kids and keep it updated. So our goal was to walk just a little bit over 1,100 miles by Memorial Day. So we set out 5 weeks to run this program, and we asked students to walk 10 laps at an assigned time during their recess. And that was the equivalent of 1 mile. And based on all the calculations, we figured if we had every student participate 2 out of the 5 weeks and do their 10 laps, that we would be able to reach the goal. And what we were really trying to do was get as many people involved as we could. And we'll talk a little bit more about the prizes and things like that. But the next thing that I wanted to talk about was the communication plan, because I think this was key for us on actually having success, especially being in the first year for this program. And you can see we communicated via numerous different media. We did email, we did newsletters, we did paper copies to the teachers with the introductory letter and the forms. We also did morning announcements for the students. And also very key was our principal was definitely bought into this and was mentioning at her staff meeting as well. So we tried to hit the teachers and the students via a number of different ways. And even though we executed everything that's on the screen here, we still had some teachers and some parents or some students that were not aware of the program, or in the second weekend said, hey, wait, what's that walking school program? So if you're planning a program like this, I would definitely focus in, especially in the first year, is the communication. I feel like it'll be a little bit easier this year when we do it again, because the students are familiar with it, the teachers are familiar with it, and they know a little bit more about how it works. So the next slide I have here is showing about the KNN announcement, which is our morning announcements. And this is just an example of the morning, and we did these every week, and they showed the progress. So we talked about the individuals who were doing well, we talked about the grades, and then how far we had made it on our map. And I'll stop here just to talk a little bit about the prizes. We did do certificates. So the North Carolina map, we had those printed up. They had the principal signature, our Northwoods Elementary symbol on them, and they were signed by the principal. So we handed out to those for anybody who participated, and even did one lap in participation. And then we also did stainless steel water bottles with the Northwoods Wellness logo, and those were awarded to the top 5 individuals and the top class that had participating, because we had some teachers that were really excited and really talked a lot about the program to their students, and their class had very high participation. Then we had some that weren't as interested, but we also had individuals in their class who were really excited about the program. And so we tried to have a couple of different ways for kids to earn prizes if they wanted to. The next slide I have here shows the bulk of the forms that we had to use and put together in the initial year. So as I mentioned before, our track is not very large, and we had a concern about safety of having all of our classes out on the track at the same time. And that made us put together a schedule of which day that the teachers could actually go out and walk with their students. And we did select a day that was opposite of when their PE. So they never had both PE and walking recess, because we tried to spread that out and give them 2 days where they were getting some extra movement in. We did allow Fridays for rain days, or if students were sick, that they could have a makeup day. And I will say a lot of people use that day because we had teachers who really wanted to be able to do this more than once a day, because they saw the benefits for their kids, especially in kind of 2nd and 3rd grade. And so we let them, if another class wasn't using it, or if it wasn't crowded, or if it was a makeup day, that they could do extra days. The second form in the middle shows the student tracking sheet. And again, this was the only thing that we put in the classroom that the teachers had to keep track of. And in 4th and 5th grade, the students actually just filled these in, and they were kept in the PTA folders in the room. They filled them in, kept their totals. And then for kindergarten and 1st grade, some of those grades, the teachers actually did fill it in for them when they did the laps. And one thing we are going to improve here was there was some questions and some comments back about the actual track itself and the kids having trouble keeping track of the number of laps. So this year we plan to use some reusable rubber bands or some kind of bracelet that we have in a bucket out by the track, so that every time they complete a lap, they are able to put one on, and then at the end they can see when they've done their 10, or if they want to do more than 10, how many that they've actually done. And the other thing that we got was feedback was to have an actual start place on the track, so that they know where to start their laps from, and that should help with some of the counting issues that some of the younger kids experienced. And then the final sheet is just the total tracking sheet that we as the PTA did. So we would go to the classrooms once a week and look at that student tracking sheet and total up for each class, and then using the total for all of the grades, that would help us update our school map and provide all the information for the announcements. So the highlights for us was, given that we had, like I said, about 530 students, we had more than 70% of our students participate at least once during the campaign, which we were really proud of, given the fact that it was a pilot year and we definitely had some kinks and things to work out. We did exceed our goal by more than almost 250 miles, which was also fantastic. And you can see this is our bulletin board that we put together for the actual tracking. And you'll see some of the colored tape, and that we use the tape to mark the progress that they had throughout the state and update it. And then we, at the bottom, listed the teachers that were the top teachers of that week, and then the top individuals, so that the kids could see their progress as they were walking by. And this was posted right outside the cafeteria, so it had pretty good visibility to that. And I'm happy to say that we got enough positive feedback that we are going to do the program again this year. We're going to extend to 8 weeks and try and do the Appalachian Trail, which will definitely need more participation from the students and more than 2 times during the 5-week or during the 8-week period. So hopefully we'll eventually get to a program like the one that Walter was talking about, but this I thought worked really well for an initial program for walking recess. So thank you.
Okay. Can everybody hear me all right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name's Greg Couch. I am, like Jennifer Zerda, who you just heard from, I'm also with Northwoods Elementary PTA, and I am our PTA's Safe Routes to School coordinator. I first got involved with Safe Routes about 3 years ago when my daughter started kindergarten at Northwoods. And at the time, we were lucky enough to have just received one of the Safe Routes grants. So for the first couple of years, I participated on the steering committee with that. And then this year I took over as the Safe Routes coordinator for our PTA. And I get a lot of help from a lot of fantastic parent volunteers. And really our entire program is building on work that's been done by a lot of dedicated parents over the years. So move on to my next slide. As you heard from Jennifer, Northwoods, we are located in Cary, North Carolina, and I think we're pretty much considered to be downtown Cary, so we're very much in an urban environment. We have 2 walking school buses. We have one that takes place on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and that takes place in the neighborhood adjacent to the school. It's primarily an apartment complex called Boundary Village, and then there's a couple other neighborhoods that feed into the route as well. And then we have another route which takes place on Wednesdays, and that starts at a nearby park. It's about a mile walk on our Cary Greenway system. So we have two very different walking school bus routes, which makes things a lot of fun. Let's see, and on the right-hand side, you can see that is our flyer that we sent out announcing our walking school bus program. We tried to include as much information as possible on the flyer, including maps for each route, with the kind of the idea that parents could put this up on a refrigerator or a door throughout the year to kind of remind themselves about times when it takes place and things like that. This particular flyer is the one that went out this year. It went home with all of our students as a flyer in their backpack. We also distribute it on our various social media that our PTA runs, Member Hub, which some of you might be familiar with if your PTA uses that, and also sent it out. We have a Safe Routes website that I try to keep updated for our school, and we were also able to send the flyer out through the Boundary Village apartment complex. The manager there was able to post it on their various bulletin boards around the apartment and send it out to their communication system. So we really tried to get the word out through as many avenues as possible. Let's see. As I mentioned before, we have 2 different walking school bus routes. And our Wednesday route was built on an existing Walking Wednesdays program that had been going on for a number of years. But our Tuesday, Thursday walking school bus was something entirely new that we started. We actually started in April of last year. And I started planning that by doing what I was later told is a walk audit, which basically just means I've walked a few possible routes, making note of possible safety issues, timing, distance. And it's probably hard to see on that map, but I was also trying to find a good spot for a mid bus stop. We do like about a 5-minute stop midway through the route just to let kids join. And then I also, once I kind of settled on a route, I also had my daughter, who was in first grade at the time, walk the route with me a couple times to kind of get her perspective. And that actually led to identifying a pretty big safety issue that we had. Along the route, we had an issue with cars being parked too close to intersections, which blocks the view of pedestrians and drivers. And we checked with the town, and according to the town, they considered these cars to be illegally parked because they were within about 25 feet of an intersecting corner. So we contacted the town about that, and we actually partnered with them, with the apartment complex and the school, to send out a letter through local HOA in one of the neighborhoods, through the apartment complex, to the school, just kind of informing people about why they shouldn't be parking that close to an intersection. And we had a pretty good response. I think most people moved their cars once they realized why we were asking them to. I think only one or two ended up getting ticketed, and I think one car got towed. But I think it's a good example of taking something like a walking school bus program and then using it as a way to enact some change, some needed change, especially a safety issue in the neighborhood. So that was something we were able to take care of pretty much before we ever started the walking school bus program. And then when our Safe Routes Committee was first talking about things that we wanted to do before we had really settled on a walking school bus program, we originally talked about trying to work things into the day-to-day curriculum with the teachers, or possibly having the PE teacher incorporate it into the school day. But what we kind of discovered, and I'm sure any teachers that are listening will nod their head in agreement, was that instructional time is already at a premium. And in most cases, it really wasn't feasible to ask teachers to attempt to work another thing into their already packed schedules. So that's kind of when we turned to this idea of a walking school bus. And then we were also lucky enough to have Jennifer Zerda, who you just heard from, implement her walking recess program at the same time. So that kind of gives us two programs that they're both available to the entire school population, but they don't interfere with any kind of instructional time. So move on. These are just some photos that I've taken over the last year or so from both of our walking school bus routes. I'll just go through these real quick. On the upper left, those are some students gathering for the Wednesday walk at Godbold Park. And below that, you can see us walking down a short trail to get to the main greenway. And as I mentioned before, this walk is about 1 mile to school and takes about 15 to 20 minutes or so. And there's only one residential street crossing. This is actually the same park and same route we use for our walk to school day and bike to school day events. And because of the distance and that it's mostly greenway, whenever we post reminders about this particular walking school bus, we really place an emphasis on the fitness aspect. Things like kids being able to get 15 minutes of exercise before the school day begins. And then with our Tuesday and Thursday walking school bus, the emphasis is more on safety, since that route's taking place more on sidewalks. There are more street crossings and intersections and things like that to navigate. The center top photo, those are some of our students holding what's become our very popular walking school bus sign. I wanted to have something bright that the kids could hold during the walk, and came up with this sign, not just visibility purposes, but also to kind of advertise it to other parents and other students that might see us walking along the route. And I think the kids, especially at this age, they love this kind of stuff. They love being part of something special. They all love to be the person holding the sign. And they do a really good job taking turns, primarily because I kind of made the sign a little too heavy by accident, which ended up being a blessing in disguise, because they don't mind after 3 or 4 minutes passing it to one of their friends. And the photo below that, that is our principal, Robin Wall, participating in one of our walking school buses. She's been able to come out 2 or 3 times this year to join us, which is a lot of fun for the students. And I think our parents really take note of it as well. And I would say to any PTA or any parent planning on starting a similar program, that you really start by trying to get support and buy-in from your school administration. Even if they aren't able to participate directly, it's a huge thing to have their support and their advice. See the next photo on the top right, that is actually the manager of the apartment complex, helping to lead one of the Tuesday, Thursday walks. And she was very instrumental helping us drum up support for the program. And I think that illustrates, if you're planning a similar program, that you don't just confine yourself to talking to people at the school or to parents and staff, but you might be able to find a lot of support in the surrounding community, whether it's, like in this case, the management of an apartment complex, whether it's an HOA or a local business, or even a senior citizen group, which is something I want to try to get into possibly next year for our walking school bus, because I've had a couple senior citizens ask about how they could participate. And then the last picture at the bottom was taken on our Tuesday and Thursday walking school bus as we were headed towards school. And it's a little hard to see in the picture, but a landscaping crew had dumped a big load of mulch right next to our crosswalk that day. So you never really know what you're going to run into each week in terms of possible safety issues that might crop up. And I think that really goes to show the benefit of something like a walking school bus as opposed to a one-time event like Walk to School Day, which is great, but you don't get the same repetition that you do for a program like walking school bus. You know, the students that are participating each week are learning things like proper way to use crosswalk, and they're doing that through repetition. They learn how to deal with different weather conditions and unforeseen obstacles like a big pile of mulch. And you can't really replicate those things in a classroom or at a once-a-year event. So move on to my last slide. This is something new, our Wednesday walk, which, as I mentioned before, was based on an ongoing program that we'd had at the school called Walking Wednesdays. And one of the things that a lot of parents had said was they really wanted to participate, but they just didn't have time because it's a 15 to 20 minute walk along the greenway to school and then a 15 to 20 minute walk back to your car. So this year I wanted to do a drop off, so parents would be able to drop off their kids with a volunteer. And so these are the consent form and the sign-in form that I created. And I earlier tried to look for the link where I found these forms. I'm pretty sure it was actually the CDC's website where I found these. And I really like them because the consent form's not filled with a lot of scary legalese. So what we do is if you want to drop your child off for the Wednesday walk, you fill out the consent form. I keep a copy of it on file and I give them a copy. And then every time after that, they would like to drop a child off, they just sign them in. And then I even give parents the option of giving me a cell phone number. So I'll text them a picture when we get to school so they know their child has safely arrived. And I think I could probably talk for an hour about this, but I think that's all I've got for now. Thank you, guys.
Hello, our next presenter may be having some connection issues. So we're going to go ahead and skip on to Denise Ward. Denise, if you could get your presentation ready, I'm going to transfer to you real quick, okay? Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm just having a little bit of difficulty finding the slide. Okay, can you see that now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I am Denise Ward. I'm the walking school bus lead teacher at Therington Elementary School in Mount Airy, North Carolina. Basically, we are a primary school, so we are kindergarten through the 2nd grade. So we have tiny tots, as you can see in the picture below on my first slide, and we just love them to death, and they are a big part of why we're doing this. We wanted them to find ways to exercise, not only with themselves, to have a drive within themselves to exercise, but also to promote a family situation where, families go out together, moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas, and everybody's exercising together. So what we've done is we've chosen a day, and we only walk on Fridays, and we have 2 sessions. One is in the fall and one is in the spring. And there is a restaurant that is connected to the greenway at the bottom of it. The school is at one end, and there's a restaurant at the other, and the greenway is in between. And it's beautiful. There's a little river that runs through it. We see wildlife along the way, and it's paved. It's a very nice road. And the school buses will come, and they will drop off the children in the parking lot of the restaurant, and so will the car riders, the parents, who are dropping off their children. I would stand there, and as these children are coming off the bus and coming out of their cars, I have a checklist, and we'll check each off. And basically, we will have 2 parents or 2 adult volunteers that are background checked walked with each group of children. And they walk about a half of a mile on the Greenway. And when they get to school, they have breakfast waiting for them, because we have a grant that has free breakfast for all students in our school. The way that we got started was we had a gentleman named Jesse Hyatt, and he went to a health department meeting back in 2016, and the topic was active routes to school. And he also had a follow-up meeting with Bethany. And basically, they got together, and Jesse totally loved the idea, and he came back and presented it to all the school personnel. And it was a little difficult for him to get the buy-in at first from the teachers, because they were thinking that they had extra work to do. And really, they don't. The only extra work that the teachers have to do with this program is to make sure that the child goes home with the consent form for them to walk in the program, and also a consent form for us to, if the parents want to volunteer or a grandparent, for us to do the background check for them. And then after that, they just have to gather a t-shirt for them. And if the teachers want to volunteer to walk, just like the parents would do, or community leaders would do with us, then they can also volunteer. And quite a number of our teachers do volunteer to walk in this program. And that's how I got started. The year before this one, I was a walker, and I loved it. And I saw how much the children loved it. And I saw how they were basically, you know, a little tribe. And you can see right there 2 of them holding hands, walking. And it has just been wonderful. They find a lot of pride in this. They associate, you know, with each other through this program, and it is truly amazing. The way that we first developed getting our volunteers to do this, our adult volunteers, was when we had an open house for our kindergarten individuals. What we would do is we had different stations in our gymnasium, and one of the stations was Mr. Jesse Hyatt, and he was basically asking for volunteers at that time, and he had the forms ready, and people volunteered. And so they just started walking, just like I started walking as a teacher volunteer. And it just grew and grew and grew. When he had the program, it started off with 80 students, and then I took it over this year, and we are up to 160 students that walk, and we only have 377 students in our school. So that is about half that are involved in this program, which, you know, we are very proud of. The average group of students, as you can see on this slide, is 10 to 15, and with 2 adults also. And we're getting ready right now to start our next program. I believe we're going to start about April 1st. So my job right now is to gather all of the volunteers and get them together, let them know what's going to happen, when we're going to start, and basically to make sure that their address information hasn't changed, their text messages or emails, because that's how I communicate with them. And get our teachers signed up to walk this time. And basically every Friday for about 13 Fridays in a row, you know, we will go out and we will walk. We have a bunch of community help as well. And this community help basically comes from our police department. We have 2 individuals that come. They bring a little scooter like thing, and all the children will put their book bags in there, or they can walk with them if they want to. But I mean, if they don't want to, they will dump them in the police department's car. They ride along in front of us. We've got a bike riding police officer that follows up in the back. and they also go with us on our trips, and they will go back and forth the whole time. You know, if we've got 6 buses, so if we have 6 group of children, they will go 6 times up and down to make sure that everybody's okay and bring and deliver book bags. The book bags are dropped off at the front of our school so that when the children get there, they grab their book bag, and as I mentioned before, they will go to breakfast. We did have some challenges, like I said, getting started, making sure that everybody understood what it was. And Mr. Jesse Hyatt, actually, when all the teachers were like, no way, we're not going to do that, he said, I'll be right back. And he went, while our staff meeting was going on, he went and walked the walking school bus route down, and he walked back, and he said, that's how long it takes. And it's not a big deal. Basically, all you need to do is to understand that if the child is late for school that day, that he's not really late. He's been on the walking school bus, and our principal will announce when all of the children from the walking school bus have entered the building, when the last one has, so that the teachers can make sure that they notate their roll count, accordingly. And the other challenge is just making sure that we have a current list, making sure that we have enough adults, that type of thing. But it's really not a challenge. These things have been handled quite well. And right here in the left-hand photo, you can see that is the vehicle where the children are placing their book bags. And this is where, the one on the right this is where we stage our lineup. All the children, when they come off the bus or they come out of their cars, they will line up against the building. And here we see some emergency volunteers, emergency service volunteers, and also our community center volunteers there that are going to walk. We have just had a great time, and such a great time, and I bought into it so much that I just wanted to be in charge of it this year. Jesse is not here. He has gone to China for a year to teach, which is wonderful for him. When he comes back, we'll probably both work together on this, but this has just been an excellent program for our school. A couple of the things that we are going to do next year, starting this year, is we're going to have a breakfast. We're definitely going to have a breakfast for the volunteers. We are going to keep walking. We are going to seek more support from local businesses. Basically, this year and last, we have only targeted community service individuals, but we're going to seek help from local businesses as well, because in our small community, they would love to be a part of this, and we just haven't had a chance yet to go there and sell our program to them, but we are definitely headed that way. Celebrating our walkers and volunteers with a breakfast. We are going to have help from a local business to do that, an appreciation breakfast for the adults, and we are just going to keep walking and just keep doing what we do and making those kids smile and having those families enjoy their morning together every Friday as they exercise. So thank you very much.
Okay. Hi, we're here. Turn it off. Can you turn it down? Close it. Close this. Yes.
Hello.
Hi, we're here.
We're trying to get our
There. Okay.
Sorry about that. I'm Heather Rector Stahl, and I work at Park Road Montessori School, which is part of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg School. We are teacher assistants, and we have put together a program called Bicycle Friday, and we've been doing it for, I guess, 4 years now.
4 years.
And we gather a group of bicyclists on Friday mornings at Freedom Park, which is one of the Mecklenburg County Park and Rec parks that's about 1.5 miles away from our school. And we start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and some students from the neighborhood ride their bikes to meet us, and then some parents drive their children to the park and drop their kids off with their bikes. And so we hang out at the park for about a half an hour. There's a playground, there's a creek, there's a rotating parent who brings donuts, and the kids eat donuts and run around and have fun.
Sometimes fall in the creek. Can you move us to the next slide? All right. You can see from the slide on the right is our map. It's about 1.2 miles,
1.4, I think.
Or 1.4
miles.
That we ride. It's mostly along the greenway. We're on the greenway till the edge of the park, and then we get onto the street. We ride about 2.5 blocks on the street. And
it's a residential street.
Yes, it's a neighborhood street. So then we are able to practice really good safety skills. The children are either allowed, depending on their comfort level, to ride on the street or the sidewalk, but they have to choose one and stay there. They're not allowed to go back and forth between. Those are 2 of our girls who have actually now moved on to middle school.
Mm-hmm.
But they rode with us for several years before they left.
Oh yeah, that's Archer and May.
Yeah, you can change the slide. Okay, how we started.
Okay. So we started in 2014 in October, and it was just us. Bethany started, Bethany became a car-free person. She rode her bike all the time, and felt like it was so much fun. She thought how great it would be to share with other children. And we were chatting one day at lunch, and we're like, well, why can't we? So we did.
We did. We started with just asking the principal, look, this is what we'd like to do, and there's a place we could meet. It had been the regular meeting spot of the Walk to School program when they had Walk to School Day. But we had never done a bike to school day before, and the principal was tentatively in agreement with it, although she did suggest that we not, did she say make waves? She asked us not to make waves.
Not to spread
not
it.
to share
just
it.
Be real quiet about it. And so it started out with Bethany, myself, and my daughter, who was, I think, like a 4th grader at the time. And we had a couple kids join us the first year. It took a little while for it to get going, but one of the things we decided to do was pretty much ride as often as we could, no matter how cold it was, unless it was like
8 degrees.
8 degrees and pouring down rain. We really rode and let children and families make the decision about what was comfortable and acceptable for them. And as time went on, it just got bigger and bigger.
Yeah. So we gave administrators the correct information, and we tried to get teachers and parents to work together so that, the children would have the correct permissions that they needed. All right, we can go to the next slide. Oh, yes. Special events.
Special events, oh yeah.
So we usually have a presence at spring picnic,
okay. Yep.
fall picnic. Heather is an artist, and she has taken on the joyful making of the T-shirts.
Part of our marketing is our T-shirts.
She does the most wonderful tie-dye, which is really appropriate because we're kind of a hippy-dippy Montessori school, although we're public.
Right.
So she lets the children choose their colors, and then she tie-dyes them. And then this year we have gone so far as to get green print that her husband actually made for us. So the t-shirts, between t-shirts and knowing that there's going to be some sort of donuts when they get
t-shirts and donuts.
And then a place to play for thing in the morning. And then the excitement of riding your bike, which, I mean, hearing them just sort of shout with glee as they run through the park. I just remember this one girl one day saying, "I can't believe my dad let me ride by myself." Like, she was so
mountain bike along the trails. There's probably like 3 or 4 different trails. And one of the things we started a couple years in is we have, I guess I should have probably mentioned, we've got riders that our school starts at pre-K, so we have 4-year-olds in our school up to 6th grade. And so we do have children of every age group riding with us. And we decided to let the older children, namely the 6th graders, lead the ride, like kids who have done this ride frequently, who showed they could manage really well and make good decisions, and then we always had like an adult right behind them helping to guide.
And yeah, so now the adults actually ride along the side, which gives us a much better view of what's going on. I used to ride all the way up front and then couldn't see anything. So now I ride a few paces back along the side, and we have, how many teachers regularly ride with us?
We regularly have like probably 3, like every week, I would say. We
3
have
teachers,
3 teachers
riding with us.
So there's typically about 5 adults with, I would say now, a standard Friday, we've got between 25 and 30 riders, bikers.
That's during the winter. That's right now we're in the winter. We generally have around 25, and it goes up during the spring and then the fall as well. We can go on to the next slide. Oh, these are some of the other things that we've been involved in, which we always get really excited about. So I don't know if anybody knows Dick Winters, but the health department, through him, donated several racks to our
we have 5. They gave us 5 bike racks.
And so we checked with CMS about how much it would cost to have them installed at our school, because the only one we had was a rusted out one behind the library that nobody used and didn't work. So what we decided when we got the estimate it was over $3,000. And what we decided was we could probably do it ourselves for cheaper. And so it ended up costing $90.
I think it was $90 to install, because we initially had installed 3 racks. And so one of our part of our PTA, there's a group of parents that came and helped us do this.
Yeah.
So we did it for, I think, 3 racks for $90.
Right.
And it was really the cost of cement.
So, yeah, cement and screws. Mm-hmm. And so then the second picture, when the city was trying to get the bike plan passed, they still haven't passed funding for it. We asked for volunteers very last minute of children who wanted to go speak at the meeting, and
in support of
and so they actually. How many people spoke?
We had about a dozen students speak. Some of them were middle schoolers, and then a number of them were probably 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders.
That's right. And then the last picture is, so the first day of the Bike Month, which was in May, we do something called the Mayor's Ride here in Charlotte. And so the last 2 years we've asked for children who wanted to join us, and it's a 9-mile route that they end up riding. So we had even more children last year, and there we are pictured with the mayor. Okay, we can go to our next slide, or our next 2 slides, I think.
Oh, are these the timeline ones?
Which may be the timeline.
I want to add, like at this point too, that we, Bethany and I lead this elementary school bike ride, but we also lead a middle and high school ride that has started this year, and it rides from one side of the city to the other. It's a 6.5-mile ride, and we usually get maybe between 3 3 to 5 middle schools and middle schoolers and a couple high schoolers to join us. So the kids ride about a 13-mile round trip, and we meet and end at Dunkin' Donuts, which is no coincidence.
And then, okay, so there was one more slide, which covers us up to the last year, I think. So you can move to the slide. Okay. And this just, talks about so now we've expanded. We have 2 other bicycle people who are doing Bicycle Friday at Dilworth Elementary, and we're trying to get a ride started now at Sharon Elementary, and we've just talked to somebody, and we're seeing how that will work out, about getting another ride or 2 started out
At Shamrock.
Yeah, Shamrock Elementary. We'll see how that goes, but we're excited about it. But that's all we have. Thank you.
Those are all Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools.
Yes. All right. That's it.
Hi, everyone. So this is Jennifer Delcourt again. We have come to the conclusion of the presentation part of our webinar. And so now we have somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes to ask some questions. So what you can do is in that box on the upper right side of your screen, there should be a chat box where you can type in some questions, and those questions will get sent to us, and then our presenters will speak up as they have answers for you. And just before we do that, I want to note that we are recording this webinar. So if you have other folks that you know might be interested, we will make that available for people to be able to access in the future.
Yes, we do have a couple questions. The first questions were for Greg Couch. Greg, would you go ahead and answer the 2 I sent you?
Yeah. These were questions from Judy Wallace. The first one was, Greg, how did you recruit volunteers, and did the same people walk every week? And our walking school bus program, we just started back in April, and as soon as I started thinking about the program, I kind of committed to being the one to lead it, at least for the next foreseeable future. So haven't really had to recruit a lot of volunteers yet. My wife actually does the Thursday walk a lot of times, so that was an easy volunteer to recruit. But as far as the same people walking it, the Tuesday, Thursday one, we usually get anywhere from 8 to 14 kids, and about half of those, the parents usually walk with us each week on a pretty regular basis. So we never are out a ratio of kids to volunteers or adults walking. And then the second question she had was, how do students get to school on other days? Well, our Tuesday, Thursday walk takes place in the neighborhood adjacent to the school, so most of those kids are walking anyway. And then our Wednesday one is a remote drop-off at the park, so that's a variety. There's some kids, I guess, that would normally get to go on the bus. Some, most of them are probably carpooled. So I think hopefully that answered those questions.
Those are the only questions so far, but if anybody else has any questions, please submit them in the chat box.
While we wait for those questions, I'll just mention a few more things. This is Jennifer Delcourt again. Y'all may have noticed as you listen to our different presenters talk today that every program looks a little different, not just because of the type of program, but because every school and every school community is very different. So as you think about adapting these programs for your school, keep in mind that there are some kind of universal ideas and ways that you can do things, but you're always going to have to think about how that fits into the context of your school community. And so the program you end up with may end up looking a little bit different than the one you model it after. And I also just want to mention that all of our presenters today have agreed to put their contact information out there for you. So I hope you saw that on each introduction slide. You should be able to access that again later. And I'm sure if you saw some of their materials that you're interested in, if you reach out to them and ask for some of those, I'm sure they'd be happy to share. Do we have any other questions?
We do have one question. This is for all the presenters. If you could let us know what feedback you get from your students and parents, that would be great.
This is Walter Rabb with the Tigers on the Prowl walking and running program. The overwhelming feedback we get from parents and students is very positive. I know our PTO a number of years will send out questionnaires, just general type of PTO programs, and since the PTO does support our program, Tigers on the Prowl, the feedback from those surveys, according to the information I've gotten, is very positive, as in that's one program that definitely, the parents and the community want to continue to support, and they feel it's of value. And the students usually enjoy the program too. They have a good sense of accomplishment, and they feel good about themselves when they've reached certain goals and when they earn their marathon shirt, and especially those that reach the multi-marathon level at the end of the year and get invited to the multi-marathon celebration. That's something that really makes them feel good, and it's something that they have to work for. So sometimes it takes a year or two. They don't get it one year, and they learn that push a little harder, and then maybe the next year they can reach the levels. But pretty positive overall.
And this is George Berger. It just so happens that my daughter attended Davidson Elementary and was part of the Tigers on the Prowl program. And one thing I wanted to note about feedback from the entire community in Davidson about the Tigers on the Prowl program is that it's turned from a school community program to really a town program too. It's really well loved and well thought of all across the town, and that really is in evidence with the business support that the businesses around town give to the program. There's no question that businesses will support something that they can see return on their investment from, and there's no reason why any other program shouldn't feel comfortable talking to the Chamber of Commerce or local business for support of incentive items and that sort of thing. What business would not want to see their logo or their name and phone number on the back of a t-shirt that is given out to potentially up to 700 kids, or on a keychain that's going to go home and be on the backpack that the parent fills up every night? So not only is are programs like these really supported by the parents and students, but it can have a much broader audience if you just go out there and ask about it.
Do we have any other questions, or are we ready to wrap up?
Hi.
I think. Go ahead. We may be having some audio issues. Did anyone else want to chime in on feedback? Other than that, we don't have any other questions at this time.
Great. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up then. So before we send you all back out into the world, we just want to take a minute to share some information with you. Active Routes to School will be sponsoring our second conference on March 21st. That's a Wednesday, and it will be held in Greensboro. We invite anybody to attend that: parents, school staff, planners, other people in the community. It'll be a full day of hearing more about what's happening across the state, how you can coordinate with other efforts like Vision Zero. It's just a really great day to network and learn from other people. Our first conference was in 2015, and we generally got really good feedback from people who got a lot out of that. The registration fee is $35, and it does include a continental breakfast and lunch. And so you can go to that link right there on the screen in order to register. That registration is now open. So we hope that you'll join us for that. And we just want to remind you again that you can find our presenters' contact information on the earlier slide, and that here you can see the contact information for George and myself, the two active routes to school coordinators that put together the webinar today. There are 10 of us across the state, so every county in the state has a regional coordinator. So you can see George and I have listed our counties here. If you don't see yourself there, what you can do is click on that link down at the bottom, go to our state website, and you'll be able to look at a map on there and figure out who your regional coordinator is. So if you'd like some additional assistance and support as you think about what a program might look like for your school, and if you would like some promotional items to help support that program, please reach out to your Active Routes to School coordinator because they can help you with that. So that's all we have for you today. Thank you so much for joining us. As I mentioned before, this will be recorded, and so we'll make sure that that's available to everyone. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.